Hi everybody, welcome to your first night of Basic Manners Training. I'm Rick Pisani. So tonight we're going to be going over some of the basics of what I'd like for us to be doing over the next 6 weeks. Mostly hoping that I'm going to change your path with your dog in a positive way. Maybe fix whatever issues you might be having right now. Okay, so this is the manual that I sent you. Like I said, I recommend printing it just so you can look at it easily, take notes. You don't have to bring it to class if you don't like, but definitely it's yours. Just about everything we're going to be doing is in the manual. Okay, so we're going to start off tonight talking a little bit about just some housekeeping type of stuff, what you'll need for class. First thing, clothing. The room is air conditioned. We are going to be outside though some of the time. Okay, so I would say dress appropriately. Obviously if it's raining, then we'll be inside. Okay. Big thing is no flip-flops, sandals, anything kind of rocks. You have to wear sneakers, some kind of closed shoe. It's for your safety, not a style kind of thing. All right. I know it's summertime. A lot of people prefer that, but it's really just for safety, all right? And in general, just wear something that you're comfortable with, all right? Sometimes you're going to be kneeling on the floor if you can. If you can't, then we'll use a chair and so forth. But again, in summertime, it's not so much of a big deal, all right? As far as what you'll be needing for class, as far as equipment, I recommend just some kind of a basic collar, all right? So this just has your simple adjustable collar. They come in all shapes and sizes, colors, whatever you'd like, leather, fabric, or what have you. I do recommend every dog wear this collar, and some of your, like your breeder, Justine, may have given you another collar. If you're using that collar, then definitely have that collar plus this on your dog. We also may be using some harnesses, which I'll get into in just a little bit. So basically, the reason for the collar, it's going to be your handle. Okay? And I definitely recommend that you have this type of collar on your dogs pretty much all the time. If you're not comfortable with them wearing something in the crate, fine. Take it off when they're in the crate. But when they're out of the crate, at least now you have a handle, it becomes something convenient for you to grab or even attach a leash to. Okay? And then as far as a leash, just some kind of, I like leather leashes, but a 4 or 6 foot leather or fabric leash, something again like this, not a chain leash. All right? We want something again that's comfortable, that you can kind of choke up on, hold it in anywhere you'd like, all right? And then this way. So I can give you the number of a website, the information if you're interested in good quality leather leash. A lot of the times when you go to some of the pet stores, they'll sell you like an inferior product for a lot of money. You know, a good obedience supply place will basically have a leash like this for, say, $25. And a good leather leash will last you, hopefully, if the dog doesn't chew it for their whole lifetime. Okay? So again, this will be for next week. Every dog needs to just have a basic collar and a leash. All right? With class comes a long line. So this is a 20-foot long line. Okay, and I'll be giving this out to everybody later. This is what we'll be using to teach the dogs to come when called, and also to do some kind of a walking exercise, which I'll get into. All right. So again, you'll get this before you. Okay. So the next major thing that you'll be definitely needing is food, treats. Okay. And before we get into that, I recommend what I'm wearing, a bait bag. Okay, this is actually the product. I can pass it around. I gave everybody a link to the website where you can buy this. Again, I think it's a great convenience tool because, for example, if you're training, you're using, say, treats that spoil, you just take this off, put it in the refrigerator. Whenever you go to train the dog, just take it out. You have room for poop bags, your keys, if you go for a walk with your dog. Just a great piece of equipment, especially during the summer. A lot of people aren't wearing a jacket where you have, like, say, pockets. So definitely want something that's available, like this here, rather than me going into my pocket, pulling out a Ziploc bag, taking out the treat and delivering it to the dog. We want it to be on a timely basis that you give them. On food, I describe food for dogs as money for us. So if you think about a $5 bill, a $20 bill, and a $200, okay? So think of like, loves, willing to stand ahead on. Head, yes, okay? So you can use dog treats. I like to use people food. I use people food a lot because I know what's in it, sugar, salt, I can read the ingredients. Just because you use people food doesn't mean that the dog is going to necessarily beg from the table. Dogs only beg from the table if you literally sit at your and you give them right off your plate. All right. My dogs pretty much are trained exclusively with human food and a variety of other dog treats. Why? Because again, that $100 bill factor, especially when I'm introducing something brand new, I want the dog to want to do it, to buy into doing it, and therefore they getting something out of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the quality of the food, or actually the impact as far as the value, and I'll go to a lower value, and eventually we're going to fade it away. So throughout the next few weeks, we will be talking about how you're going to fade the food away. Because I don't want you to leave here by the end of the 6 weeks and say, my dog only does it for a treat. And I do hear that a lot from clients. And not so much, honestly, my clients, if they listen to what I'm about to say, is that there is definitely a process of weaning the food away. And you have to be conscious of it and doing it on a gradual basis rather than cold turkey. So you can't go from all to nothing, because then that's going to fail. All right? And you can't also expect nothing and expect them to do it just because you love them and they love you. Because dogs are just like us. They're selfish creatures. They do what works for them. Okay? They really do. And actually, that would probably be, I'm going to draw your attention to this list I have here. And think about putting that, what I just said, dogs do what works, as the fifth element. So the reason why I'm going to start with this now, before I get into some training techniques and what we're going to do, is literally the first two pieces of this form. If you memorize or really embrace this methodology, you can really solve just about any one of your dog's problems. Okay? Because what I want you to think about first is, rather than just showing up with your dog in a particular situation, think about being proactive, not reactive. So what do I mean by that? Plan. Think about what could possibly go wrong. So for example, if you're going to sit down, watch television or a movie, and you're in your living room or your family room, and the dog's running around, and then now all of a sudden you're engrossed in the movie, and the dog starts chewing on a plant, or basically steals somebody's slipper or something like that. So now what happens is you're being reactive, and you're reacting to what they just did wrong, which is an attention-seeking behavior. So dogs do a lot of things like that. They do negative things we don't like, to get your attention. And even though that is negative reinforcement, because you may be reprimanding them or telling them, no, don't do that, they still got your attention. So they are being reinforced.
Almost don't wait for it to happen.
That's correct. And that's a very big thing. You're exactly right. Correct?
Yes.
Good. Okay, good. I'm going to try to learn everybody's name in addition to the dog's name, because I think you are all my students, not only just the dogs. All right? So yes, you want to think about what's going to happen first. And you will always find right now, maybe if you're thinking, that if you have a particular situation at home, and you think like this always happens when, so if you already know that the dog is going to react a certain way when you do something else, then that's on you in a sense, because you're just setting it up, or you're setting the dog up and yourself to fail. And that's actually what we don't want to do. We want to set everybody up for success. And we'll talk more on that. The other major one is quality of time, not quantity. I find, and especially this is a big problem with COVID-19, and even though we're starting to get out of it, when we were in the heights of it, people got puppies and rescued a lot of dogs from the shelter, they were giving the dogs a tremendous amount of free time. So they felt, well, I'm home, I'm working at home, so why shouldn't the dog be out? And then what was happening is, again, the dog was getting into trouble, attention-seeking behavior, and then now we were always reacting to that, and we actually weren't using the crates. So I definitely, is everybody using the crate here? Okay, good. I recommend that you continue to do so for literally, and just hear me out for a moment, at least until they're two years. Every dog is different. I know that's kind of a general statement, but literally there's a lot of phases in your dog's life. They go through different learning periods, fear imprinting periods, different changes in their personalities. So the crate becomes a great management tool. And also, it allows you to do whatever you need to do. Remember, this is the dog is in your house, not the opposite way around, that this is the dog's house, that you live in it. It's your house, the dog lives in it. And yes, I want you to think about your dogs as your loved ones. My wife and I don't have human children. We have 3 border collies. So we have 3 canine children. But there's no question they have plenty of privileges. But privileges as they earn them. Okay, and that's where the quality of time, not quantity, goes. If you give the dog all the space, and I'm talking about allowing them on the couch, the bed, any kind of furniture right away, I have no problem with that. My dogs sleep in bed with us. They're allowed on the couch. But the point is that they understand that if I say off, they get off. And it's my couch, and this is not the time for it, then it's not the time. It's not that they're bowling us over, jumping on us, things like that. All right? And I do recommend for puppies, all of your dogs except for Christina's dog here, which I asked her to bring for a demo dog, is the oldest dog in the class. The majority of your dogs, I believe, are going to be about 14, 15 weeks?
13.
13? Okay. Yeah. So they're still young. You definitely want to use your crates. I would tell you to think about, and especially if you're having problems with housebreaking. Anybody having a problem with housebreaking? Excellent. You, excuse me?
We haven't housebroken yet.
Yeah, we haven't housebroken yet. But we are proactive. Because
Okay.
we know when he's going to do it.
Okay.
So we get outside and does it, no accidents in the house.
Okay, so that's housebreaking.
We're getting there.
Okay, you're getting it. That's what I mean by housebreaking. Housebreaking meaning that they don't go to bed in the house.
We're running into an issue where we take the dog out and she does her business, and then we come in and 5 minutes later we'll be on.
Yeah, that
Okay.
happened to us too.
That's a good point.
So
And
like, what's going on?
so number one, because I'll address that, are you taking her out on leash?
Yes.
Okay. Are you sure she's doing both?
Yes.
So-
I make sure.
Okay.
I'm looking.
Yeah.
Because
Are you using food when
when she comes in, she gets a treat.
So when she comes in-
She will go to the back door when she does have to go and sit.
is it all the time, or is it just certain times of the day?
Certain times, not every time.
Okay, so that's a good point. So Nick's doing everything correctly in that I recommend always taking the dog out on leash, because you want to let them understand that we're out there to do their business, not for playtime. And if they start to play, then basically what I would do after about just a few minutes, no more than 5, I take them back in the house and I put them in the crate. If Nick just said that the dog is going both, If it's certain times of the day, I mean, dogs will urinating them?
Yes.
Okay. So what could be happening is I would definitely recommend not using treats when you take them out. Because what they tend to do is they learn very quickly, if I give you a little, what I call a token squirt, I'm going to get a treat, and they really haven't voided themselves or emptied themselves, and now they still have to go, and now they come in the house and they get comfortable or relax, and then say, oh, I forgot I have to go.
My wife did say that she plays us sometimes.
Okay?
We'll pretend, in other words.
Okay,
just
so
to get that
if you really feel, you and your wife feel that the dogs, and this goes for everybody, if you feel the dog has not completely emptied themselves or, relieved themselves, then I would bring them back in the house, either really closely supervise them or better yet, put them in the crate. And if it's happening a certain time of the day, Nick, well, then that's again that proactive, not reactive. If I know it's happening more in the evening, like right after dinner, then what I would do is I would feed the dog dinner, maybe take him out to potty, put him back in the crate, maybe you do something that you need to do 15, 20 minutes, a half hour later, you take them out again, they fully relieve themselves, then they get free time. All right, so I recommend like 2 hours in the crate and maybe 15 minutes to a half hour out of the crate. And if you basically use that method throughout your day, and that's just as a general rule, you can make it shorter time in the crate, you can make it longer. So if you're working at home and you're working for 4 hours straight, fine, the dog can be in the crate for 4 hours. Then when you take them out to relieve themselves, and now they have free time after you take them out.
Yeah, how much space do you want? Right
Um,
now, we have an extra large crate, and the dog's it's about her size right now. She can curl up and has more space.
Okay,
All right, it's partitioned.
right, yes.
And I have a pillow behind it so she can push it.
Okay, so you can start to try to give her more space gradually.
Okay.
Most dogs, once they learn, and because you've all had your puppies now for, I'm guessing for what, about almost a month
Yeah.
at home? Your dogs are probably pretty comfortable with their crates and they're getting the idea. You might even be able to give them the whole crate, depending on the size of the crate. If you have a super large crate, meaning like a German Shepherd size crate, and your puppy is this big, then I wouldn't just yet. Okay? So, the two big things, proactive, not reactive, quality of time, not quantity. The other, which we're going to get into, training, say a command once. Why? Because we want to teach the dogs to listen the first time. It's very important when we work on come. It's a lifesaver. I only really want to say it once because I may only have one chance. So that's important. And I really think this is more of a human skill, obviously, because you're the ones saying the command, not the dog. So that you'll hear me throughout the course, the next, 5 sessions, saying, oh, you said it 2, you said it 3 times, maybe 4, and I'll say it once. And really, you want to get into that habit. The last one, we're going to be positive, not permissive. So we're going to be very positive, but positive doesn't mean permissive, which means black and white. When you want something to happen, you need to make it happen. Okay? We'll talk more about that. All right? So again, these 4 things, if you embrace them, I think you'll have a really good start with your puppies. Okay? All right. Any questions so far? Good. You've asked questions. All right. So we went over equipment, food, lights, gloves, willing to stand on their head for. Okay? Bring enough of it. All right? And I would probably recommend not feeding your dog dinner next week, or a light dinner or half, depending on your puppy. If you know that your puppy is really, if they're really food like crazed, you're then better off to feed them, because I have had that problem when people come to class, they haven't fed the puppy, and now the dog is so aroused when they see treat food that they actually can't think. So if you have one of those dogs, see, Bellagio's shaking his head, no I don't, then that's good. But if you feel you do have one, then you may want to feed them a little bit. All right? So again, that's going to be a learning curve, and you're going to play with the different types of treats. You know, you're going to bring some things next week that you think that they really love. I'll have some extras. My favorites for $100 bills are like frozen meatballs and cheese, or mozzarella cheese. Actually, the $20 bill is almost the mozzarella cheese. Then I use like frozen meatballs and some kind of meat as the $100 bill. And literally something they like, you can get like one of these beef jerky treats, and that should be great. So definitely have them, you can mix them all together, so this way you can reach in your pocket and you can grab it readily, right? Rather than, again, 3 separate bags. All right.
That's what you like, you food, frozen meatballs, or mozzarella cheese.
Exactly. Hot dogs, pieces of meat, you know, steak, chicken, pork, anything like that. All right, something that they really do like. All right, and that's something that you'll experiment with. All right. So now we're going to get into a little bit more of the training aspects of it. All right. So I'm going to borrow Holly and demonstrate a few things, and then we'll talk about it. So one of the first things that I'm going to demonstrate, I'm going to acquaint myself with her. Hi, sweetie. Hi.
Yes,
Hey, good girl. Okay, Sid, good girl. Now, Sid is going to be the first thing that we're going to teach. Sid is actually going to be the no jumping command. Okay, here we go. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the food in her nose. I'm going to raise it slightly. Sit. If you notice, I didn't say the word sit right away. Now, she probably already knows it. Some of your puppies might also know it, but when they come, sit. When they come to class next week, there's going to be 5 other dogs that they don't know, or their brothers or sisters that they haven't seen. Sit. Sorry. And then lots of people. Sit. Good girl. Okay. That's what I mean by also not being permissive. So I'm being positive. You notice she's jumping. I'm still using the leash. I can apply a minor adversity when she's jumping, and then she understands that that's what I don't want. So that's why I recommend having a collar on them. You could use the collar the same way. I'm not going to get any more forceful than that, but I feel that it's very black and white. Okay, so note also how she sits in a moment. Sit. So you see how she's bringing her rear up right like that? That's what we call a tuck sit. We want that. As opposed to doing this. So she won't even do it, which is great, what happens is what we call a rock back sit. So if you take the food and you literally put it here and we bring it so far back that the dog has to rock back into the sit, so that's not desirable. Again, the reason why it's not desirable, some of you may decide you really like training your dogs. Justine was one of these people. She was a student of mine like 20 years ago, and now she's heavily invested in dog training, and she breeds, and she's in the field, and obedience. So what I'm getting at is I'm going to show you the right way how to do a lot of particular positions. And because if you do get hooked on this and you may want to dive into competition obedience or rally or agility, the dog will learn it right the first time. You won't have to undo it. When I trained my very first dog, my Sheltie, my trainer didn't do that, and I actually had to retrain him to sit because he used to give me a puppy sit all the time. And a puppy sit is a lazy sit. She sits beautifully, really nice. All right? So, first thing is sit, sit. Now, I'm using the food as a lure. Now, what I'm going to, so this is where the technique, and this is in your book, I'm going to say to her, sit. She sat, now she gets a reward. So that is a process of weaning the food away. The food is a lure, is a bribe. She now knows this. I'm going to ask her to do it. She complies, now I reward her for it. As time progresses and as she gets better and better with it, I am actually going to fade the food away and maybe only reward her every other time, every third time, and maybe just occasionally. All right, depending on the situation. Yes.
I don't reward her like I do with treat, like I train her with the treats, but I also train her without treats.
Okay.
As well.
If you're teaching them something brand new, I would not recommend training them without some kind of reinforcement. Again, we really, and this is what I meant by the cold turkey, we want the dogs to love to do this. Think about yourself, and I do mean this, and this is no offense if somebody works for the government or a union. When you meet or get to the top of your pay scale, and then now you're basically, that's all you're going to earn, and you still have to work for 10 years. There comes a point where you say, you know what, this isn't so much fun anymore. There's no more incentive for me to exceed the expectations, for me to try harder. I'm just going to go along. This is what I meant by dogs are selfish and they do what works for them. I want the dog to love it, to do it all the time, and therefore I am going to, as a baby, I'm going to reinforce it. I'm going to create what I call like a golden handcuff. That's what my father used to call it. What did she get? Love it. Thank you. Come on. All right. So I want her to love to do it. Let me move on with the next one. All right. We're going to do a down. And for the down, I'm going to start with the sit position. I'm at a 90-degree angle to her. Okay, I'm going to place my left hand on her, like say, shoulders, and I'm going to move the food slowly in a J motion between her front legs here, and then start to bring it to the side. Down. Okay? So she didn't go on her side, but she did go down, and that's when I'm going to say the word. So I'm going to do it again. Down. That was better. Okay? The reason why I want her on her side is when we start to work on stay, this is a much more stable position than a sphinx down. So picture a sphinx down. So the sphinx down is here. Maybe she won't even do it.
Oh, she wants some food.
It's okay. So a sphinx down is much more there. They can get up quicker. So what again, here, move the food close to her body. When she gets to this point, I'm going to bring it towards her tail. I'm not really using my left hand to really push, just to guide her gently. And I'm going to take my time. If she loses interest, then I'm going to just start all over again. Okay? Down. Now, a lot of dogs actually, Holly is reacting pretty appropriately. Down is a submissive position, okay? They're not in as much control. And it's also, and I've done this a lot, like probably a few thousand times, all right? So you're gonna find this one might be challenging for you as much as the dog. The thing, down, good through, okay? And then I'm gonna reward her, maybe even reward her with food on the ground, all right? Then when she gets really good at it, and then I'll do something like this, and I can say down, and then hopefully she will do it. I don't know. I'm not even going to ask if she knows it or not just yet. So the things that I'd like for you to try is a sit and a down with your own dogs. We will be doing it next week. The very last thing, but not, actually the most important thing, is watch. 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 Good girl. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a treat, I'm bringing it to her nose, up to my face, watch, watch. Why am I doing this? Because next week your dogs are going to be very interested in each other. We may have a few barkers here. And when they're locking eyes with each other, they're engaging each other, and then they're basically saying, hey, you want to play? Your goal is basically, let's say Nick has his dog right there. I'm going to position my dog so that her back is to Nick and his dog, and hopefully his dog's back is to me. So now they're facing me, they can't be engaged with each other. If they're doing this and I'm letting them go and look right at Nick's dog and barking at her, then that's what they're gonna do. All right, so this is really for you, so I could talk a little bit, you hear me, and we don't have a room of 6 barking dogs. Okay, that's why I said it's the most important. Some classes you get a few really big barkers in there, and some are really quiet. All right, so those are the 3 things that I'd like for you to try, practice with your own dogs. Okay, we will review them next week, so if you're having a problem, no big deal, but at least you tried it. I'm sure you've all tried to teach them sit. They probably all know it already, and that's great. Maybe think of some of the tips I've given you and then implement them. Okay, so those will be the big things for next week. Lastly, and this is something more for you to think about for ahead of time, is we will be discussing walking, and we will be walking the dogs on leash. I want you to decide which side of your body you want to walk the dogs on. Very important. Right side or left side. You want to be consistent. I used to care many years ago and teach everybody it was only left side. If you have any inkling that you might do any kind of AKC competition sports, then you may want to train your dog to walk on your left side. Because everything in the AKC Kennel Club is done on the left side. That's called heel position. All right? If you don't, and if you have a bad shoulder and you prefer maybe your right side dominant, then fine, walk the dog on your right side, no problem. Key is, think about it, we're gonna be consistent. How are you gonna hold your leash? So I'm gonna put her on my left side. I'm gonna take this little handle and I'm going to gather it. I'm not gonna do this. Don't recommend that because you do need to let go quickly and maybe choke up on it. That's not gonna allow you to do it. So you're gonna gather. I'm gonna bring her into position. Here, sit. Sit. All right, so I need some food. Another thing that I'm gonna, so actually she's doing one of the things that I'll address it now. Most of us are always training the dogs with this frontal position. So therefore the dogs, you notice when I asked her to sit, she gravitated right to my face. That's fine in the beginning, but I would also like for her to sit on my left side, sit and stay there. And also learn to be able to do it if I need on my right side. I do agility with my dogs, sit. And they need to be able to set up on both sides. And I'm going to show you that's a setup. I call that a setup, getting the dogs to sit. That's something we'll work on. All right, but you notice that I'm not in a frontal position. And I want to also be able to teach the dogs to do a down, not always in this frontal position. Okay, so sometimes at your side. So that's probably, for most of you, is a big eye-opener. Because I know like I said, I've been teaching dog training for about 25 years, and I teach lots of new people with their puppies, and the first thing I see is always a lot of this, which is totally fine, but then I want to make you aware that there's the whole world, okay? You have 2 sides of your body, okay? So, gathering the leash, as I kind of went off the tangent, I apologize, so I'm going to get Holly to sit on my left, sit. I'm going to gather the leash like this, and when I walk her, I'm going to have my hands down at my side, such like this. Okay? Not too long of a leash, not too short. I want her to be about here or here. What we don't want, and this is the reason why I'm asking you to choose a side, I don't want for her to be walking me like this in front of me and me being dragged. Nor do I want them back here like this. Okay? Again, we're not in the show ring, so they don't have to be heeling perfectly, but I want her to understand, let's go, Holly, that she stays basically on my side here. If I need the leash to help me, then that's totally fine. Okay? And this is what I do. Good girl. Okay, sit. Nice. Very good. Okay. All right. So So these are all things that we'll be going over. I kind of went over some of those things quickly, something, again, I'll be repeating them, but just so you can start to practice it. All right? So I'm going to give Holly, thank you very much, back to Christine. All right? Any questions so far? No, you're good. All right. So I just want to make sure that I covered what I need to cover.
Actually, can I ask a question about the down?
But the down?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been working on it, and he's really good with the floor, but then when I take that away, he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
So does that mean we need to keep working with the floor until he gets it?
Good question. Yeah, fading the lure for the down for some dogs can be a bit challenging, and we will definitely go over that.
Okay.
So what I would basically tell you is to show you is that I would do a few with a lure, like 2 or 3. Then on the 4th one, I would take, let's say I'm going to cue with my right hand. I would show the dog the treat with my left hand, put it behind my back, and then I would cue down. If the dog did a down, then I would reward. If the dog did not, I'm not going to say down again, but what I am going to do is I'm going to show them the treat. Remember this? Put it again behind my back, and maybe I'll give a hand signal. Okay? So that's what you'll work on, and that certainly will be working on next weekend for the future.
Now,
But
that
that's very common.
Sorry, that didn't work the second time. You just giving up for 10 minutes and trying again?
I would then it tells me that I would want to see how quickly the dog is actually doing it for the food and the lure. Like, are they a little sticky with it still, or are they going down very quickly? If they're still a little what I call sticky, it's not really like I would say what Holly was doing was sticky for me. That was not a perfect down. Have you done a down with her? Okay, then that's perfectly, you can understand why. But I've seen dogs still do that even after people are practicing it for 2 or 3 weeks. And it could be because their mechanics are not great. Maybe the food, the reward is not enough. So, and this is where you have to say, okay, the dog really doesn't like this, or maybe they're not convinced that this is worth their while. Maybe I'll change up the reward. That sometimes really makes a difference, and that's why I said I always bring extra treats, different than what you might have, because especially when we get to come when called, it inevitably happens. I tell people bring $100 bills, they bring kibble, or Cheerios, or carrots, or bananas, and I'm like, that's not gonna cut it. Then I whip out the frozen meatballs, and the dogs are like, aye, aye, sir. And then all of a sudden the dogs are like, they're coming when called immediately, and then people are like, oh. It's as simple as that. So literally, I'm not, when I'm telling you that you really want to bring $100 bills, I'm not doing it just to kind of hear myself talk and, to promote frozen meatballs, really doing it because it works. And I'll show you how to get rid of it, okay? Because that's the key thing. We do need to get rid of it. All right. When you come here next week, I'm going to have the chairs separated, and I do want everybody to keep their dogs separated. I do have a private lesson before your class, so don't come into the building, please. You can walk the dogs along the property, but again, I would encourage especially the litter mates not to play with each other. Trust me on this one. I'm going to give you a little free, meet and greet and some playtime during class. If you get them thinking about play before class, when they come in here, they're going to be barking at each other, and they're not going to be paying attention to you one day. All right? So that's the reason why I do it. It's not just because I don't love puppies, and I'm just trying to be mean and stern. No, I do it for a reason. There's a lot of things, like I said, I've learned. I'm a student of my trade. I'm constantly learning. I go to a lot of seminars and a lot of conferences, and I'm always looking for new and better ways, because I really always feel that there is, not that there always is something out there, but if I feel that there's something better and I can teach somebody new to do it, then that's what I'm here for. Okay? So you will get the benefit of somebody who's been doing this for a very long time. Heel position, This, like I said, your heel position, you're gonna have these starting stations around the room. As far as words, I want you to think about commands, one-word commands. You can use any word you'd like. You could use a different language if you'd like. But remember who is going to be handling your dog. So if, say, for example, you speak French and a majority of your friend and family does not, and you're giving them French commands, that could be a little bit of an issue. Or Spanish, you get the idea. All right? Again, have no problem. They could be bilingual also. All right? What else did I want to say on that note? One-word commands. So, for example, a big one is people say sit down. So sit and down. That's two cues to me, not sit down. All right? Yes, we say it that way. Why don't you come here and sit down? You hear that? It says come here and sit down. That's even come here, which are two recall commands, then sit down. I just said 4 separate cues all in one phrase. And I hear people do that all the time, they don't even realize they're doing it. So that's a little bit about training yourself. You want to think of simple, the KISS method, keep it simple, all right? And you want to really be clear, black and white. Dogs really learn with clarity, and the clearer you are with them, the quicker they will learn. All right. So one-word commands. We're not going to use a lot of words like no or at or any kind of wrong, because really we're teaching a dog. All right. And if I'm teaching you now and you asked me a question and I just said to you, no, 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 and I didn't say anything back, anything additional to that, you'd be looking at me like, all right, it's no, I know he's not happy, but no what? There's no additional information to that, it's too general. So really, if you find yourself at home and you're using no or wrong or any kind of command like that, and you're saying it a lot to your dog and they're not responding, it's because it's just that. There's no other information attached to it. I don't mind what I call an adverse, a negative marker occasionally. I train all with positive reinforcement, so I use very minimal corrections with my dogs. Now at this point, if I do raise my voice or if I do something like tell them no, they look at me like, oh, he's really serious about that one. Don't have to correct them because I don't. I teach them what I want them to do, and then if they're wrong, I say, okay, why are they wrong? Are they distracted? Are they afraid? Do they feel they have a choice? If they're distracted and afraid, I help them. If they have a choice and I'm convinced they know why and what they should be doing, then I might correct them. And I'll call a correction maybe something like, I said to the dog, like, Holly, sit. She did not sit. I know she understands sit. Maybe she's distracted by the other dogs. And maybe though it's week 5 and she's been here and the other dogs, I'm not going to buy that. Then I'm going to maybe correct her, and correct her would be maybe I'll take her gently by the collar and I'll tuck her into the sit. That's a correction. You don't have to get heavy-handed and basically use like a heavy-duty collar correction. Because I do train a lot of different people, age groups, young, old, some people having, some people have physical limitations. The way I'm going to train you, basically anybody can do it. All right. One last thing is I kind of said, due to COVID-19, if everybody's vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. Probably should have said that before you walked in. Yes, at this point now everybody is vaccinated. Yeah. I still would like, though, as far as bringing other people to class, I would like for the one person. So if you and your partner, you and your daughter, you and your wife, your husband, what have you, one main person is the main trainer, and then if the other person cannot attend regularly, that's fine. And let's say maybe then you want to bring your son or daughter, but I always want one main person that I'm going to see every week. Why? Because I'm really training you. And there's 6 people in the class. And if it was to change each week, then I'm training 12, if not 18 new people in addition to 6 new dogs. And you're not gonna learn very much, and it becomes 10 times more difficult for me. So again, maybe bring somebody else if you'd like. You could always, then you're gonna have the book, review with your family at home. All right. I also on my website have some videos that you might be interested in on my video blog. We'll be talking about that, rickscannerworkshop.com. All right. You could stop it now, Karen.